Welcome back to episode 5 of the Composing Made Simple podcast. And what we thought we are going to roll into today is we're going to do a year in review of how our years went. We thought we'd talk about like some pitfalls and things that we thought were going to go our way and didn't, or actually some happy incidents or things that happened that we weren't expecting. So I hope you take the time to listen to this episode, and I hope you enjoy. So let's get into it.
Composing made simple. We talk about something new every show. Composing made simple. Grab a coffee, have a seat, and let's go.
Yeah, this has been a very interesting year for me. I've spoke about this in length on the podcast very numerous of times. I lost my job last year, and I kind of had, scrambling, and I started freelancing, and I managed to do it for the whole year and had some quite success with it. Still not where I want to be, obviously. So that kind of threw my path off. What I initially set out to do last year, and I made a video on my YouTube, goals and things I wanted to do, and even on my whiteboard that I have behind me, is I wanted to do more music and stream a lot more on YouTube, do a lot more videos. The year started off like that, but it kind of tapered off once I started freelancing. I just didn't have time to compose music or to really do videos. I tried to, and I would put some out, and I think I put out a few here and there. But life always throws you unexpected turns, and I've had to deal with it. And I think it's okay for us as composers and musicians or whatever, that it's okay to take little breaks. And actually, I think it's really good for you because you kind of get your battery recharged and you don't burn out, and you kind of get away from it for a while. Obviously, I always had a scratch to I want to compose music, and I always felt like if I'm not doing it, then I'm not a legit composer. And I think we shouldn't do that to ourselves. We shouldn't beat ourselves up all the time. Because life happens, and things aren't always going to go the way you always set out. But I always think it's good, since we're approaching the new year. Obviously, we're recording this episode a little late than normal we do. We just all been busy. But I think a good thing for you to do is set down, right before this new year and start planning out what you think you want to accomplish in 2019. And always make them attainable. Don't make goals that you don't think you're going to reach, but also don't make them too easy. I think I've made some goals last year or for this year that were somewhat unattainable. Like, I know for my YouTube channel, I wanted to hit 2,000 subscribers for this year. Well, I figured I was going to put a lot more effort, and I was going to be doing a lot of videos and streaming a lot more on YouTube. And like I said, it just didn't happen. But I made it to I think I'm almost up to about 1,800, that's really good. I mean, that's nothing to complain about, So anyway, that's pretty much like my initial thoughts and about my year in review. It really went a completely different route than I was really truly expecting. I thought I was really going to do a lot more music. My goal was actually to write one song a week, and I think that was a little too harsh. I think that was an unexpected thing for me. But that was a goal that I set out for myself. And to be honest, I worked on a bunch of pieces and stuff, but I just didn't have time to really devote it because I was busy from basically June to about the end of November. I was literally working over like 40 hours a week. I had a part-time job, and I was working on a bunch of projects. And I literally could not find time, or I didn't really want to sit at the computer because I sat there all day. And that's a bummer if you have a computer job. Like, if you work a full-time job and you sit at a computer all day, it's really hard to put yourself back in that computer chair to write music. And I think one little tip I can give you, or a suggestion, is if you play an instrument other than, if you play a piano, guitar, just play on your instrument and try to write that way. And have have your phone or have a little recorder there and record the ideas, even if it's for 10 minutes. Because you can always go back to that and, come back to the computer and work it out. But does anybody else want to go? And I guess we can just, go on more if anything else happens. But
yeah, I just wanted to add, like the benefit to all this unexpected, the turn of events in your year, Todd, is that now going into 2019, you know exactly, what you want to do, and you have that extra year of experience to tell you this goal is attainable or it's not, right? So
agreed.
These experiences definitely help us to shape our ambitions for the new year. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, it helps you grow. I mean, and basically now coming full circle, it's the end of December almost, and I was telling Curtis and Chris right before we went live with the recording is it's kind of all come full circle to me. I kind of went down the rabbit hole for a few years on sample libraries and have to write film scores and all this stuff. What I initially set out to do when I first bought my Albion 1 from Spitfire Library was I wanted it to complement the kind of ambient guitar or kind of the things that I do with guitar. I just wanted to complement it, but I went down a rabbit hole for like 2 or 3 years, and it just like kind of dawned on me after I took a long hiatus from music and just I really sat back and thought, it's like, what do I do? What do I need to do as music? And it's really come full circle for me. And I just recently bought a Kemper profiling amp, and I'm really starting to dive back into guitar. But it's like I'm just gonna write music that just whatever I write, and just be happy with it. And I'm kind of setting a goal for myself since I have a little bit of downtime before the new year. I have a side project. It's called Imperfect Silence. If you look on my YouTube channel at youtube.com/TakeEdwards, you can see if you go back in my videos, I have ambient guitar sketches that I used to do. And I actually set out a few years ago to write an EP, and I started writing stuff, and I have a couple songs that I've mapped out and things. But I'm in the new year. I'm trying to do a 4-song EP. That's my little goal for myself, and I want to see if I can do it. And I know I can do it. It's just am I going to do it? That's the key. Like anybody can do anything. You just have to apply yourself, and you'll be amazed at all the things that you can accomplish. But anyway, so I've come full circle, and that's kind of where I'm at right now musically. So, Chris, if you want to go, or Curtis, go ahead.
I don't know. I don't really think about things in terms of like New Year's resolutions. I try to keep it like so that like the difference between the December 31 to 1 transition is not a whole lot different than any other, the 8th of May to the 9th of May,
Right.
I try to keep it pretty even, just because in my personal just like style and stuff, just being consistent and not having those bumps is important to me, because I'm one of those people that I don't want to say manic, because that's a real obviously it's a real thing, but kind of go into, for lack of a better term, I'm sort of a manic phase where I think I'm going to like, write a bunch of stuff, do a bunch of work, get a bunch of stuff out there. And then what happens after that is, crickets. Nothing happens after that. So for me, what I try to do is just kind of keep that slow and steady thing where like, set a goal, for me, it's weeks, getting this much done in a week, and being real, like you said, Todd, I think that was a good, piece of advice to keep it attainable, writing this much a week, and for me, and being willing to revise that, depending on the situations. In November I took a sort of a freelancing gig doing some music directing here in town, and so I'm not gonna beat myself up if I don't get all of my composing done, or I don't get all my live streaming in that, for those weeks, because I'm, going to all these rehearsals and stuff. But then once that ended, I sort of tried to get back into it. So I don't know. For me, I don't mean to sort of be a bump on a log and not super helpful here, but I try to not do New Year's resolutions and things like that. So when I moved in here, I was trying to stream more, which I think I started. I've sort of fallen off the wagon a little bit. I think I need to come up with a more realistic schedule for that, like maybe 2 days a week or 1 day a week, because I think that would maybe be a little bit more realistic. But yeah, it's just kind of, for me, I kind of think of it as kind of a constant process that I'm kind of tweaking here and there, rather than big specific days. But that's just me. I mean, other people need those big specific goals. So
Yeah. Well, I just think it's a kind of a roadmap. It keeps you
Right.
kind of on track. I mean, like I said, I'm not a big planner myself. I'm learning to do that since, working for yourself, you really have to. And I've learned a lot this year and things, that you need to do. One thing that you touched on, Curtis, I want to kind of touch on is, if you do set these goals and set them attainable, like the live streaming thing, it's like, don't overwhelm yourself. Ease into some of this stuff. Just don't jump. I mean, I'm just one of those people. I like to jump off a cliff. That's just my personality. That's just who I am. And I like to squander and flounder for a little bit, and then I sort of work things out. That's just me, because I like challenges. But yeah, just like if you're gonna do a live stream, or you're gonna start an album, or you're gonna write one song, just make it one goal. Don't go like, okay, I'm gonna write a 12 record next week. You're not gonna do
Right.
it. I mean, it's just
Right.
it's just not gonna happen. So make sure, like I said, make sure they're attainable goals. But sorry, Chris, I think I cut you off.
Oh, no. I was gonna ask Curtis if there was like one or two highlights that you could point out for us this year, or one or two things that you're looking forward to potentially happening in 2019. Like maybe that could be an easy
Right.
goal to set.
That's a good that's a good idea. I think looking forward to 2019. I think I'm finally gonna the next Chucklefish game. I think we're finally gonna go into real production on, like real like writing a soundtrack for. So I'm
Nice.
hoping that happens this year. It was supposed to happen last year and the year before that and the year before that, but game development is slow. So they've been working on another. They moved the entire studio basically onto a different game for a little bit, just because they wanted to get it out the door. But I think they're getting onto the real like big production train this year. So I don't think it's I don't want to say that like oh yeah, it's coming out this year or anything, but I think we're gonna at least be spending a lot of time producing it. There's supposed to be maybe some more airships content that I'm excited about. I'm hoping that happens this year. I as always trying to get just as much music done each each period as I reasonably can. So there's always that sort of sitting in the background. So those are the two things I'm looking forward to. Those two games I think will be fun. And then there's always every year I think, oh, it's going to be so slow this year, and then all at once somebody's like, maybe my agent contacts me, is like, hey, I got this thing for you or whatever, and there's always surprises. So I think the surprises maybe are what I'm even more excited for, because you don't even know what those are going to be. It's always fun.
Yeah.
Right.
So is there anything sorry, Chris.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say, I think having an agent, like, that's something I haven't even ever thought about. So I was wondering if maybe we could talk about that in a podcast thing, or obviously
sure.
I'll message you, but I think that'd be something cool to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was just gonna say, Chris, I mean, what's something that you did in 2018 that you're very proud of that you accomplished? You didn't think you were going to accomplish, or you know what I mean? Just something that like
I don't know. I'm trying to think. 2018 was a pretty dull year for me. I mean, there wasn't most of it was me moving my studio.
There you go. You got a house, dude.
Thing.
A new studio.
That's right. We got a new studio, but I mean, I don't know. That kind of feels like background stuff to me. So it was a little of a slower year, but it was a good year. I liked it. I liked what I did do. So I did more airships music and all sorts of stuff. So
did you notice when you moved your studio, it kind of took you maybe a week or two to get like in gear, because you're just not used to the new setting, and like or does that stuff affect you at all?
I mean, it's pretty similar to my old one, so I didn't have a huge amount. I mean, there was definitely the staring at my pile of equipment and my desk in my office, like knowing that I was gonna have to spend days just hooking wires up and tying cables and doing all that stuff and setting up the new network at the new house, and that's always hard to get over. But it's exciting, so usually I just kind of blast through it. And it always takes less time than I think. I always look at the giant pile of wires and think, oh, this is going to take 2 weeks for me to get all set up, and then by the end of the day, it's mostly mostly there. So
right, yeah, that always bugs me.
That's the nice thing about being alive right now, is that like you can have a true home studio that's not a massive buildings worth of consoles and wiring and routing, and you still are able to make pretty professional sounding stuff. So, and that's really that's really nice to live now. It's getting to the point where writing music is being like somebody who writes words like books. They just have to have a laptop and a word processor and they're good to go. Whereas for me, I just need 3 computers, 2 routers, some studio monitors, and I'm good to go. So it's not quite there, but it's getting there.
All you need is a laptop, an audio interface, and a keyboard and headphones.
Right.
You can.
Well, and these days with like with Note Performer and Dorico, I find I spend sometimes literally on a laptop, with some headphones, and that's all I need. And it's almost like having a word processor, because you can just sit down and actually compose. It's getting pretty amazing.
I would have killed to have this technology back in high school when I actually had more time. Seriously, back when I was starting, I used to get the Musician's Friend catalog sent to me. I would just drool over all the gear. And I remember always looking for like a 4-track or 8-track, and they were like $600, $800 for an 8-track. And I was like, one day I'm gonna get this, and I'll just sit in my room all day and record. And I remember when I went to college for community college, I took a couple of semesters of electronic music. And this is when I was green. I didn't know anything about music, and I actually took music theory. I took one semester of all music courses, jazz guitar and music theory. Anyway, and I remember we had a Pro Tools rig. Now this was back when it was, I think, DigiDesign. Was it? That was the first company, wasn't it?
Yes, that
Yeah.
was who Avid bought.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was DigiDesign's Pro Tools. This was before Avid, all this stuff, and you had to have DigiDesign specific
Hmm.
gear, like
Hardware.
yeah,
That's right. You
hardware.
had to use their interface,
Yep,
right? You had to
yep.
like use a Pro Tools interface. Yeah.
And I remember because we got our like a second computer, family computer. I was like, oh my god, I can get a recording studio with my computer. And I remember going to price it out. I mean, at the time, I think it was like 10 grand or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's like just insane how prices, like, you could under $500 you can have a freaking recording studio now. I mean, it's insane. I mean, you can, if you have a Mac, you already have GarageBand, and
Mhm.
don't knock GarageBand. Like, there has been
Mhm.
people that have recorded albums in GarageBand. So
I just had somebody the other day who sent me an email. I'm scoring a film and I need somebody on the piano part, and I was like, oh, okay, that's great. Can you send me the music? And he's like, yeah, let me see how to get this out of GarageBand.
yeah, I mean,
I'm like,
it's
cool, man.
if it's
Awesome.
something,
I mean, that's great.
yeah. It's something like
I
if
don't-
if you're just
yeah.
gonna be a band or something, like something simple, like one. I mean, GarageBand would probably work for you. I mean, literally, it'd
Yeah.
probably be the best option because it's so simple and you could just focus on music.
It's better than like Cakewalk was in like
Yeah.
1999.
Oh,
I mean,
Cakewalk. I think we had
that's
Cakewalk
what I started with.
3.0. Yeah, that was the first program I ever learned. Like I told you, it was I think it was 2001. So yeah, it was DigiDesigns. We had Pro Tools rig, and I remember I had this Boss pedal. I still have it. I think it was the Boss ME30, and it was like kind of the first digital thing, and I could record. It had an amp simulation in it. So when I went to the rig at my college, I plugged directly into the audio interface with my pedal, and that's how I played my guitar parts. So this is like circa 2001, and I remember writing stuff, and this is before I even knew anything about a click. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just played it because that's how
Wow.
I came up. You know, I come from a band, so the drummer kept time, and it was all new, but it was so exciting. But I remember when I first priced out a rig, I was like, cool, I'm gonna go buy one, and it was like 10 grand. I was like, yeah, I'm a broke college kid. That will never happen. And then you look at the prices today, and it's amazing, dude. All the stuff that we can get. But anyway, yeah. So we're getting way off topic. But yeah, so it's just crazy how far tech has come, and like you said, Curtis, you don't need much. I mean, you really don't. And the sample libraries are getting so good. I mean, they're still limited. Trust me. I mean, they're not, like, oh, we're here, and you still have to work them. But compared to what we were working with back then, like, oh, it's years beyond.
Yeah, I can tell you stories about that Vienna rig at my college and how much it cost and how much of a pain it was to work
Oh,
with.
boy.
And
And I think
You
we have
know,
to
I
sit
mean-
here and really appreciate. I think people lose that, lose
Yeah.
perspective, and they complain and like, why did this do that? It's like, dude, just shush. It's like, trust me, the stuff. If you had what we had to work with back then, you would, all this stuff is great. Yeah, it sucks when a company puts something out and it sucks, and they don't really work it, and they try to rip people off, which I haven't run into a lot, but and I hate this notion of releasing unfinished work, like products, and like, oh, we'll just patch it later. It's like, I really hate that, and you get it a lot in gaming, and just like an unfinished,
Yes.
in software. It's like, well, it's like, well, then don't release it or call it a beta and have people opt into it, but don't just say
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a
and I
release.
think we as consumers are often to blame, not fully to blame for that, but
Mhm.
we share in the blame that we demand that there be more and more and more
Yeah.
of this stuff. And it's like, and especially I see this a lot in the arts. You see people
Yeah.
get mad about their favorite movie series or book series
Uh-huh.
or whatever being different. I'm like, you don't own that. That's
Right.
not yours. That's somebody's writing that.
Mhm.
And people are, a great example, like George R. R. Martin has been writing this Game of Thrones book for what, like,
Oh yeah.
the next one, and people are so mad. I'm like, it's his work.
Yeah.
He wants to make sure it is good. Just wait. Just be patient. It is so hard to be patient, but just wait. I would rather that people spend 10 years and make something good than spend 1 year and just rush it
Right.
out the door, because it's like, what is that? There was I think it was some Japanese game developer who said, a bad game that you release is bad forever. but a
Yeah.
good game might take 15 years to make.
Exactly.
It's like,
Right.
but the bad game is bad forever. And I think that's true, for, I put this in the perspective of like, as creative people who make stuff, when you're making stuff, keep that in mind that like, once you release it, it's done. I mean, that's, you might be able to release version 2 later, maybe. But people are always going to remember that version 1 wasn't good.
Oh yeah.
So just wait. And sometimes for me, it means working on something really hard for like a month and then putting it away for literally 6 months.
I come
And
back
not
to it.
coming and come back to it, because you'd be surprised at how easy it is to fix all the things that have been frustrating you when you give it some time
Oh yeah.
Sure.
to work on other things. But yeah.
All right. Well, Chris, sorry, we kind of ran off the tangent here.
No, not at all. I enjoy every word. I guess for me, this year was basically my launching pad, and I always thought, in 2017, that if I enjoy Mario music so much, why don't I do something about it? And if I like songwriting, why not venture into a bit of composing and see what happens? And
Mm-hmm.
and in February, that's when I released my first soundtrack piece, and the reception was really positive, and people seemed to enjoy the idea. And I think ever since from there, my goal for the year was to, at least be productive in coming up with something every couple months, and I wanted to be able to have at least a small catalog of something by the end of the year. I think I've accomplished that. So right now I have about 4 soundtracks I did this year. So I'm getting ready to release a new one on the new year, hopefully the first week of January or something like that. But I think my main point of consistency was trying to be consistent on my YouTube channel, and I think I've managed to go the whole year uploading at least 1 video a week. So that's something that I tried to maintain, and whether it was a review or whether it was a composing video or a soundtrack or a breakdown or something, I just wanted to keep the channel active. And more recently, it started to get more traction, and yeah, people have come and enjoyed what I've been doing. So it's been only positive, I think, for me this year. I mean, there's a few opportunities that have come, and I've reached out to the people, but people either don't respond, or things don't go out the way they plan. So but I've gained a few new clients, regular people who are looking for orchestration work and arrangement stuff. So it's been quite productive, and at the same time building up my teaching studio, my piano and theory teaching. So it's been good, and I'm only excited for what's to come. So
That was some of the best stuff when I was teaching. I really enjoyed teaching and how it informed my composing. I don't want to sound like I'm mad that I no longer do it anymore, but there was some good crossover there. So enjoy that, because I think there's so much there. You know what they always say, if you want to learn, teach, right? Like
Oh yeah.
I didn't realize how poorly I grasped some concepts until I had to explain them to somebody, and that really made my grasp of those concepts a lot better. So
Yeah. That's why I started my
so
YouTube
glad I
channel.
did it.
Yeah, that's why I did
Yeah.
the YouTube, because like I was like, well, if I want to understand these sample libraries, how to use them, and how to be a composer and all this stuff, because this is stuff I struggle with. I was like, well, let's try to talk about it and teach people and teach what I know, and then maybe they'll help me out and stuff. So it was very cathartic, and that's why I started doing YouTube. And I wish, and congrats, Chris, for your output, because I see it all the time, and
Thank you.
I don't have a lot of time to watch a lot of videos, and I try to watch what I can, and I try to tune in on Curtis's live streams when I can. But yeah, the one thing you're going to find out, one thing you said, Chris, is you're going to have when people come into you and start giving you things, and you think you're going to have a project, and then it kind of disappears like that. You get used to that. And I've had that myself. Or
Yeah.
you're working on a project, and then just one day they're like, we're no longer working on this. So get prepared, and but it's not the end of the world. And I had a lot of ups and downs this year, and a lot of rough and tough times. Especially, you're in a different spot, Chris, than me and Curtis. We have kids, we have families, house, all that stuff. So we're a little more established. And for me, it's even harder because, to just say, hey, I'm gonna do music, or I'm gonna do freelancing and all this stuff. Like after working, a corporate job for almost 10 years, it's a big lifestyle change, and so it's been real rough. But dude, I applaud you for
Thank
your
you.
hard work, man. And I've seen it, and I've seen the traction, and especially in the Discord, you're helping people out, and people respond very well. Especially you too, Curtis. I see the feedback you give, dude, and
Hmm.
you give great feedback. And also, if anybody out there's listening, like head over to the Discord. I'm telling you, like there's really great people in there, not just me and Curtis and Chris, but there's other composers in there. Um, and
Yeah, for once our main channels are other people talking to each other, not
yeah,
us talking to each other.
yeah, right, yeah.
And it's been
Usually it's
wonderful
me.
to see.
Yeah, I mean, and
Yes.
I get like, well, it's not always active in there, but we're all busy, and all people are really busy. But people like they'll go off on tangents, and I'm trying to post a little bit more and be a little more active. But like I said, from basically June to like November, like I had no time, and
Mm.
it was rough, man. And but I needed it, and I learned a lot about myself, and I accomplished something I set out to do, and that's the first time in my life that I jumped off the deep end. And Chris, you did that this year.
Mm,
You like you said with your composing, like I just want to do this, and you did it. And
mm,
that's the beautiful thing about life and being human and what we do is like if you set your mind to something, you'll accomplish it. And you just have to have patience and time and believe in yourself. And I learned a
mhm,
lot about that this year. And I'm one of those typical Debbie Downers, kind of like Curtis, like what he was saying about, like the year he doesn't like focus on. But I get depressed, and now we're in winter. It's even worse. And I beat myself up. Like, I'm really hard on myself. And so, like, I probably make things worse, way worse than they really, really, truly are. But that's just who I am as a person. And I think and that's how I push myself. Because if I
mm.
don't, I'll just be a bump on the log and I won't do anything. And, so yeah, it's very cathartic. And like I just said, I want to applaud both of you guys because I know you guys are really, really busy um, and just and thank you for starting this podcast with me. I mean, it was crazy how it all happened because like I think when we first, I think I'm literally, it's almost been a year since me and Curtis did our first podcast on my YouTube.
Yeah, it's been
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, and then I think it was like a month or two later, Chris was in my live stream. That's right. Yeah, you were
Yeah,
in my live
that's
stream,
right. We were
and
doing a
you
track
shared
review.
your Mario track,
Yeah.
and I loved it. And I was like, dude, let's talk, man. And that's how it all happened.
That's
And
great.
here we are,
Whew.
going on almost a year later, and who would have thought that we were gonna do this? No one.
Right.
I mean, we really didn't, and it's been awesome. And like I love talking to you guys, and I'm hoping we can do a lot more in 2019. And I want to. We've talked about this offline, but we really want to grow the site and do other things just besides the podcast, kind of tie into what we do on YouTube, but a little more teachery tutorials and kind of like courses and stuff like we've talked about. And
Mhm.
because we have a lot of knowledge, and I think we can help people. And I just see like the other courses out there, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, it's just not what I would want to do.
Right.
And I need to get back and talk with some of the other composers that I've interviewed, and I want to continue doing that. And we're thinking about bringing that on the podcast because I think that format works a lot better audio. But we'll probably have
Mhm.
them hosted on each of our YouTubes, or whoever conducts the interview would have it on their channel, which is fine with me. But we're thinking about bringing that in the year, and some other stuff and the mini episodes. And so yeah, we're really hoping to grow this and have even cooler stuff on the website. So stay
Yeah.
tuned. But it's just me, Chris, and Curtis. Like as you can hear, we're really busy people, and just to get us together to talk for an hour or two, it's sometimes it's really tough. But we love doing it. And um, you know, well, like I said, another thing we've talked about a little bit, but I wanted to mention it here on the podcast since we're going to New Year's. Like eventually, we might start a Patreon page for Composing Made Simple, and and we'll put tiers in there. We're still in discussions about this, me, Chris, and Curtis, and I've been thinking a lot about it. Like, would we do extra content on Patreon if you pledge, because that would give us more incentive to do this. If we're getting paid to do this, or people really want us to do this stuff and do more, I will definitely put my time and effort to do it.
Mhm.
Because right now we're just doing this for the funds and and help people, and we just enjoy doing it. Especially like my YouTube channel. Like, I get a little bit of money, but it's not much. And when I have a house bills and and kids, and
Mhm.
it's like I have to prioritize my time and make sure the best things for me to spend my hours on. So, but yeah, so just throwing that out there. Eventually, we would love to do that and do extra content. So like, and have the audience say more. But right now, we're just trying to build an audience and all that stuff. But anyway.
So thank you for listening, audience.
Yeah. No, I mean,
absolutely.
we look at the numbers, and me, Chris, and Curtis, we have not really done a lot of promotion for this. I mean, obviously we have the Discord, and a lot of the people that probably listen to this is from the Discord channel. And I know Curtis has mentioned it a little bit on his live streams, but I think I put out one maybe tweet and an Instagram post, and that was it. And but we've seen some traction, and the numbers are way beyond what I ever thought would happen. And I mean, it's not like we're like, oh my God, we have over 1 million listeners. But I'm just saying, like, just from for no marketing or, not really promoting this thing, it's just kind of organic growth, is really cool. And I'm just really proud of what we've done. And we're still finding our feet with the podcast. You could probably tell from the first episode till now, it's gotten better, and it's just going to continue to evolve. And we like to branch out and do other material and, and all that great stuff. So, but yeah, like I said, like Curtis has said, and Chris, like we just want to thank you very, very much for listening and tuning in to us this year. And we hope to 2019 is going to be even better, and hopefully we'll get some better composers and to talk to and interview, kind of pepper them in. So you don't just have to hear us blabbing on all the time. But yeah, we're hoping big things, and I want to see what Chris is going to do, in 2019, and because I can just see, his trajectory is going, and
Appreciate it.
And also with Curtis, what projects he gets to, and me, see wherever I fall. I'm hoping, to really get back into music, and I've kind of just accepted the fact that I might not do it for a living, but that doesn't mean I can't do it for a side thing, and maybe one day it will. But don't beat yourself up if you can't do it professionally. Not everybody was meant to do it. There's nothing wrong with doing it as a side gig, and a lot of composers, even professional or big names, I bet you they did side hustles too. Not everybody. That's
100% of them.
Yes, they're all doing 15 other things. Yes, but I'm saying we have this thing, and I think we've talked about this on the podcast, but it needs to be said. It's, we live in an age where like all we see is people's highlights reels on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. People only share the things they want to share. They're not sharing when they're, have a gun to their head, or they want to jump off a building. I mean, like, I'm probably being over dramatic, but you know what I mean? Like, nobody shares the bad times. And I've had many.
And a lot of people do a lot of work that maybe they're not proud of later.
Yeah.
That was just done to make a buck, and that's okay. But know that, again, I would say 100% of composers that you look up to, if you look up to composers, have at some point been writing the jingle for the diaper commercial or the, not there's anything wrong with diapers commercials, just, that's not always what you put on front and center on your website. But 100% of them have done that. 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, name any huge composer.
Oh, yeah.
John Williams wrote the freaking theme to Gilligan's Island. Okay, like he was writing. That's the kind of stuff he was doing early on in his career. It was just like, whatever came his way. So, just that's another thing. I feel like that's good that you brought that up, because I feel like a lot of young composers talk to me. I know I just want to work on these big, dramatic, wonderful things and stuff I can be proud of. It's like, no, you have to work on everything sometimes, and sometimes that means just making an album and putting it out on DistroKid or whatever. So
I want to look into DistroKid. I've seen a lot of people. Maybe we can talk about that or do some research, and because I'm thinking about using it. It's just we live in a beautiful time. I mean, I would have dreamed to do all the stuff I could do now, and it's like I'm not taking advantage of all the stuff that we got. And it's like, be thankful that you can do what we do, because I'm telling you, 10, 15, 20 years ago, no, you would not be doing this, because, and even, getting a job in this, is if you're independent. And here's something I want to cover too: diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I'm guarantee if you look at composers, athletes, just you name them, they have their hands in 15 other things that make them money. You're not gonna just do music. You can do teaching. You can do And as you can see, like people, they do products, they do libraries, they do, you know what I'm saying? Like Hans Zimmer has his own freaking library. I'm sure he's getting paid to do that. So you just gotta think like, treat it like a business. It's a business. Yeah, it's art and all that artsy fartsy stuff is great, but at the end of the day, man, if you want to eat, keep a house, and feed your kids, you gotta diversify. You gotta think like a business, and that's one thing I've learned over this last year freelancing. I mean, even though I'm not doing music, you would still do the same principles if you were a composer. You have to have a business hat. You got to know these things. You got to know how to time management. There's so much more to being, a composer or a freelancer or whatever than just doing the work. There's all this other stuff that you have to do. And like I said, yeah, maybe I didn't do much music this year, but that doesn't mean in the future I won't. But I have these skills now that I've done that I won't have to do again. You know what I mean? So it's kind of a prep, I guess, for owning your own business. And it's cool, but some days I'm just like, it would be easier to have a full-time job. Because once I clock out, I come home and I don't have to worry about nothing. When you're a freelancer, man, I remember working on Sundays, working late at night, doing 14, 15-hour days. But I would always look at myself and go like, yeah, I'm busting my butt, but it's like, hey, nobody's telling me what I have to do. I get to work from home. I get to do what I want, pick and choose the projects. It's a great thing, but, it's not for everybody. But anyway, does anybody have anything else let's move into gear. I know a couple of us have some new stuff, or Curtis, do you have anything else to add before we move on to the next segment?
Let's do it. Let's move on.
Cool.
I was gonna say, this is making me teary-eyed. It's like a farewell.
Well, I mean, it's not. We're coming back in 2019. We're going to hopefully come stronger. Hopefully we have more time to dedicate to Composing Made Simple. And the reason we're using Composing Made Simple and everything's under that banner, I want to remove myself because I don't want it to be about me. And like the Discord, it's kind of taken on its own life, which is great. And that was my intentions. And the website right now, composemadsimple.com, if you go to it, it's just showing the podcast. But eventually what I would like to do, and me and Chris and Curtis have talked about this, we need to iron it out even more. But eventually we want to write articles, do gear stuff, and bring on other composers to write about topics. And there's some things that we want to work on. I'm an instructional designer. That's what I do. I build courses. So I need to start building tutorial courses and things. The first one that we want to do, and we've already talked about this, is an essential composers for DAWs. So like Cubase, Logic, stuff like that. Things to get you up and running so you don't have to fight the DAW. 'Cause I know up and coming composer like me, and we struggle with this. So things that you might not think about. That's the first kind of course we want to try to do. And then eventually what I want to do is I have composer friends and people that I interview and I've talked to. Get them to write courses about specific topics that they're really good at. And I have a few in the works. That people that are interested. So, and Curtis and Chris, I know they're interested too to maybe do some stuff. So that's some stuff that we want to do in the future. We don't know when that's going to happen, but eventually it's going to be more than a podcast. And but anyway, so let's move on to gear. Enough of the business stuff. Let's go to the fun stuff. So all right, well, who wants to go first since I've been blabbing too much?
No, go ahead, Todd.
I don't know if either of us have any new gear. I mean, I could.
Any libraries?
I could talk about some. Dorco just had a really amazing update. Note Performer had a great update. I'm doing all my work in Note Performer or in Dorco these days. I've like taken a break from working in a DAW because it's so nice to work in Dorco with Note Performer these days. It's they've made huge strides in both of them in the last couple of updates. So it's been nice. It's been wonderful. I've been doing live streams where I just will spend the entire live stream in Dorco the whole time. Nice. Not even go into the DAW. So that I mean that's been really great. So I mean other than that I haven't bought anything, or I mean I bought 8 Dio Century strings because it was on sale, but I literally haven't used it.
Right.
So
Not yet.
I can't talk about whether it's even good or not.
Yeah.
We all have those libraries.
Yeah, on my end, I've started playing with Glory Days, the big band Hornstorm orchestral tools, and I really love it. It's a really cinematic sound when they record in the Teldec studio, and it's one of those one of those libraries that are definitely niche, but if you're a big band arranger or even a jazz person looking to write for horns, it's definitely a good to look into because every single instrument is recorded individually, and each instrument has consistent articulations across the board. So you can really just learn how to write for this type of genre. And I've always loved jazz and big band based on my past with when I started listening to Michael Bublé and stuff in the past, and it's just started to cultivate my interest even more. I got a present, which was a big band writing book teaching how to compose and arrange for a big band. So want to do that this year, or I mean next year, and as well, OT released Metropolis Arc 4, which was kind of a big deal when it was first announced, but their marketing is not the greatest, and they kind of wait an entire week before they actually release any walkthrough videos, which is kind of annoying, especially when the pre-order ends on a certain date, and then they release like one walkthrough video maybe 2 days, 3 days before, and, and then the second one like the day after. So people are basically forced to purchase based on OT's reputation, and most people disagree with that, and totally see why, right? So
as an outsider, I don't own anything by Orchestral Tools at all. I mean, everyone keeps telling me to get Berlin winds, strings, all that stuff, which I have been meaning to do. The Sturm und Drang over that Arc 4 thing, I saw it. Like, I just saw this thread on VI Control, just like growing and growing. And every time I would go back, it would be like, the bolded because there were new posts, right? And I would look and there would be literally 15 more pages that I was like, I'm not going to read this. So I was like, I was interested. You know how I like to wade into the controversy every once in a while and just kind of see what people are. So I went and I looked at the trailer and I looked at the page and I looked at the examples, and I was so confused what people are angry about. I was I did not quite understand the that sounds terrible thing. I mean, it's smaller ensembles, right? Arc 4, it's like it seemed like it was more like kind of getting that epic sound, but with more of a chamber approach, which I thought was super interesting. And I mean, we don't need another, Mahler-sized 12-horn orchestra library. There's 800,000 of those. So I was really confused about that. Perhaps you can, as an outsider, you can, as I'm not one of you, you can explain to me why people are so up in arms about this. I'm very confused.
Yes, I think the main thing about it was that because Arc 1, 2, and 3, they are all very different in nature. Like Arc 1 was kind of the first of its kind. You had Majestica, you had those other ones, but Arc 1 was kind of became the go-to for that huge epic music, right? And then Arc 2 kind of brought it down to its knees and just like took it in a completely opposite direction with the PvP, whatever. And then Arc 3 was a completely different focus in terms of the percussive element, and because OT had been lacking in percussion for a long time, and now they had this epic percussion library. So 4 had a lot to live up to, right? And I think people were kind of looking for a different concept with kind of the same sized ensembles, maybe even larger, maybe even more epic. And so when this was announced, Elite Orchestral Forces, first of all, that doesn't really tell you anything, right? So people were confused from the trailer at the very beginning. And then the fact that they were smaller sizes, people were kind of apprehensive about that because we don't associate the arcs with chamber size or anything like that. Usually we think of them and we think huge and bombastic or whatever. So that was kind of what took people aback as well. And then when they were actually when the walkthroughs came out and we heard these different examples, most people felt that they could replicate a lot of what was already in the library with their existing stuff. So a lot of what's in the library are these instrument combinations, right? And what Orchestral Tools wants us to think as new colors. People were saying, well, you know what? With enough work, I can put a flute and piccolo together. I can put a English horn and muted trumpet together. That's fine. I don't necessarily need this as much as the other arcs, and I think that's what people were saying was a bit of a letdown. The actual song quality is great. Like the other stuff, it sounds a little closer mic'd, to be honest. So it's not as wet as the other libraries, which I like. But yeah, the people complaining that it doesn't sound as good, it's probably just because they were expecting something huge and bombastic, and we actually got something a little more detailed, a little more personal. So it was just a little different. And maybe not as unique as the other arcs, but it definitely offers a different
Huh.
perspective, I think.
Right. Two things.
I'm
two
seeing
things.
this.
Hold on. I got two things. Hold on.
You do your
First.
thing.
Yes. One second. I have two things. First off, don't buy it if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Second
right.
thing, how do you get more epic? You said more epic. Okay, you can only get so epic, and I thought epic music was dead. You can't get more epic. So from OT standpoint, and what they're saying, they're trying new things. Albion's done the same damn thing, a Spitfire. So their Albion 1 was, the same thing. Then was Albion 2 was a little more soft. Albion 3 wasn't it more like kind of poly whatever, just kind of like weird. And then Albion 4 was their Tundra kind of thing. So it's like I hate this more epic thing. The way to make epic music is there's contrast. Listen to Mahler. Done. Okay. Sorry, Curtis.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm seeing this trend more and more with every quote unquote controversial, I'm making air quotes with my fingers, library that comes out. I feel like this has been a theme with Hans Zimmer strings, with Eric Whitacre choirs, with Arc 4, with even East West, some of the East West stuff that's come out this year. What's happened is like all the meat and potatoes parts of like orchestral sampling has really been done to a very good degree at this point. Like, you can fool at the point where you can fool trained musicians with Hollywood strings if you work hard enough. That's it's we're kind of done, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're not really done, and maybe in this year or next year, or in a few years, we'll be like, I can't believe that I used to use those hobo strings, years ago. But like we're at this point now where like, for whatever reason, all the meat and potato sampling is done for now. For now, I'm not going to say forever, but for now. And so what these companies are having to do to make new products is to make something that's a little bit niche, that's a little bit unique,
right,
and that's a little bit interesting, which to me is way more interesting and way more fun to watch.
Right.
I would rather see varied combinations of stuff that are not, we sampled a string section, right? Or, we sampled I'm waiting for the day that somebody puts out a library. We sampled over 100 horns for this library. It's coming.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Forzo is what? It's like 20 or 30 horns at once. I'm serious. That's how big it is. I actually own Forzo now, so I'll have to look into. I haven't had a chance to literally make sound with it, but my point being is that that's boring to me. That's really, really boring. I can make 20 horns, and people say I can replicate the sound. Well, can you? People said that about Hans Zimmer strings too, and I don't think they're right. I saw a lot of people say I can make this sound, and no, you cannot. You cannot make the sound of some of the stuff in there.
Yeah.
And this just continues to be a theme where people are expecting it to just be another meat and potatoes library, and then it's not, and then they're angry about it, and I'm soups confused to talk like the kids these days because I'm old. What's going on here? Like, what's happening?
Well,
like why can people just not just like accept it? And if it's not, like you said, Todd, if you don't like it, don't buy it. What was that thing like back in the iPhone days when they had the antenna gate and that guy made that song? If you don't want an iPhone 4, don't buy it. I feel like that's like there needs to be a video for that for like everything. If you don't like Eric Whitacre choirs, don't buy it. Like, just don't buy it.
It's a reflection of our culture, where we're at. We're an outraged culture. Everybody's outraged about everything, politically, personal. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a reflection of where we are as a society. Everybody wants to bitch, moan, complain. It gets old. And we're at a point where you were talking about, Curtis, about sample libraries. We're at a point where we're getting diminishing returns. You can only go so far. How many freaking string libraries do you need? Okay? And to your point, Curtis, yes, the things that they're like Spitfire. Look at Spitfire. They're the perfect example. Because if you've noticed, they're going off, do a right turn, doing these niche market stuff. They've done with they already got their symphony library, they already have strings, brass, percussion, they're done. So now they're going off on these one-off things. Yeah, they did the Hans Zimmer strings thing, but they're doing a different take on strings. So how can we make this stuff and make it different? And that's, I think, where we're going with samplers. How many more string libraries, brass libraries? I mean, we're at a point where the detail and realism is about the best you're going to get until the scripting, and we get more articulations. Right.
Right.
That's the key. And we're just not there yet. And eventually, another 10, 15 years, they'll be able to do even more articulations. But
well, I mean, I think the future is eventually it's all going to go to what like Swam does, where they don't sample, where it's all just generated stuff, or like Note Performer uses machine learning. They literally feed it like real scores, and it learns to play better. And that's why with Note Performer you don't have to like change a patch to get an articulation. It just does it. That's really, I think, the future. But none of the big companies are there yet. It's all just little people doing
But I'm
this
saying,
right
like,
now.
how much more can we do? I mean, if you really compare like a sample library, I mean, Vienna stuff to today, the probably only difference you're going to get is the scripting's better, right? And probably audio quality's better. But it's if you get at the end of the day, what people got to realize
mic positions.
Yes, or mic positions, 50 mic positions. But that just adds to the realism, gives more detail, more options. I get that. Because this is no different from a guitar. Like people, they use like 4 mics for a guitar amp because they get a room sound, they get this sound, or different mics, different characteristics, and they blend them together. I get that. But I mean, you can only go so far because you're recording a sample. Okay, so you're in a mix. It really doesn't matter. So basically what you're becoming, or what we're becoming, is production people. Like, instead of learning music, you just need basic music theory. How to construct a chord, a major scale, or minor scale. You're pretty much good to go. Nowadays, you need to know production. And that's a turnoff for me. I love production. I love recording. I love doing that. But like I said, me and Curtis are old compared to most people.
It's so boring.
But yeah, it's like that's not why I did this. I like writing music, and I sacrifice production for music. I'd rather, because at the end of the day, people listen to recordings from 1930. Some blues dude sounds like crap, but dude, that music's speaking to you. They don't care. After 30 seconds, they hear the music, the soul. They hear it grabs them. They don't care that it was recorded in 1930 on one mic and a dude in a room. Nobody cares. You know what I'm saying? So the power of music, I think, for me, which is probably not true if you want to do this professionally, don't listen to me, but I'm just saying, doesn't matter. If your music can speak to people, it can touch people, they will look past that stuff. They don't give a crap what reverb you're using, what library they don't know, they don't care.
And it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in 5, 10, I don't know how many years you won't have to do any production because it will be all done for you. I mean, we're already at the point where you can slap Oxford Inflator on something and it will sound amazing. Yeah. I mean, moderately amazing, right? And we've already got things from who makes RX Isotope that will essentially mix for you, right?
I have a few of their plugins and they're really good.
Right. I have Ozone and stuff. I love it. Great stuff, by the way. Why? Because I can push one button and things sound good. Yep. That's why it's good, by the way. Not because it has all this fine-grained control if you know what you're doing, and I never touch it because I push one button and everything sounds good.
Yeah, it
doesn't matter. It sounds good. Who cares? Yeah. And this is not sustainable because this is scriptable. Like if your entire career is based on the fact that you write kind of, I'm not going to say any names here. If you write kind of melodyless, nicely produced music that is just really just kind of doesn't really speak or say anything, it just kind of sounds nice and is produced well, your job is going to be replaced by a small shell script very soon. It's not true. Long for this world. So if you're listening to this and you want to write music, please learn how to write music because you're going to be in demand once all those people are out of jobs.
Why are we still listening to music?
There's an AG button.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a
We're still listening to music from 200 years ago. People are still having their minds blown, from things that were written over 200 years ago. The stuff that's been written now, it's a fart in the wind. People are going to forget about it. I mean, I'm just speaking truth here. Because I'm going to ask you guys this. Name music that's really touched you. That's new. That's new.
I mean, I can, but that's because I'm a nerd and listen to concert music.
I'm just saying,
like new concert music,
But I'm saying
new concert music is it?
Pop music, or it's just all recycled garbage. There was something that happened like at the end of the '90s into the 2000s where music just became recyclable just garbage, and garbage in, garbage out. It's true. So if it doesn't matter what plugins, what string libraries, if you write garbage music, it's gonna be garbage. There's no plugin, there's no sample library that's gonna fix that. I can't stress that enough. So you gotta learn how to write melodies. I mean, there's a reason people love melodies. People love to sing. People love to hear that. Like if you hear a song and it just you just can't get it out of your head, that's how you write, and that's how you know. And if you understand, most people that write good music, they're usually not famous until they're dead. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's very rare for somebody to write music and live and be famous. I mean, obviously pop stars, you get that.
And they also don't do it as their main job. Going
Right.
back to what we were talking about earlier. I mean, Chris talks about, teaching. You talk about doing side gig, that this is kind of a side gig for you, and you do your other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
It's
think
the
about
truth.
big composers that didn't compose for a living. Gustav Mahler. Who else? I
There's
guess
a lot.
kind of Bernstein, basically. I mean, there's a lot of people who just do other things, and then composing kind of happens.
John Williams.
Yeah, well,
He's a he's a classical trained composer, but he fell into film scoring because it made him money, and he get to write music.
Right.
You think that's the kind of music that he wanted to write? I don't know, but if you listen to his stuff and compare it to anybody else, he is writing orchestra music. I mean I mean, I went and saw him live, and I'm like, this is an orchestra, but it's for a film, and you can pull all his music from every film he's ever written, and listen to it without the film. It stands on its own. Take Hans Zimmer, kind of. Some stuff does. I'm not bashing Hans Zimmer or anybody. No. It's what he does what he does, and that's what people want, and they'll pay him for it. God bless him. That's awesome. He made it work for himself. Great. He's great. I love his stuff. Trust me. I'm not knocking on. I'm just speaking truth here.
Sure.
It's like that's what a film composer did. Listen to all the greats. All of course, my mind's blanking on them. All the good film score people. Morricone or Morricone, like all those guys. Yep. You just listen to it, and like you don't need to watch the movie. The movie is playing in your. If you've seen the movie, like I'll perfect example for me is when I listen to Back to the Future, Alan Silvestri, and I listen to the score. I've seen it so many times, so I know, but I know exactly where I'm at in the movie just by the music. Because like his theme's there,
Right.
the feeling's there, the emotion is there for that scene, and I could just see the visuals in my head when I hear the music. I'm like, oh, that's that part. Oh, there's that little bell thing, So it's like, it's what it's and put on. I don't know. Just put on a score today, and all it's just and then you go to like 15 minutes more into the score. It's the same thing. It's like. And the perfect example, this is great, was one of Mike Verda's classes. And like it really clicked for me when I saw this. He played out the Batman Begins score, and he played, that horn thing, what is it? The horn, the famous horn line.
Is it just the minor third?
Yeah, the little horn thing.
Is that what you're referring to?
Yes,
minor third?
Yes. So he played it at the beginning of the film. Yeah. So he played it at the beginning of the film, then he went to the middle of the film and the end of the film. It's the same thing. It's just a loop. So the music didn't evolve over the course of the film, which mostly characters are supposed to evolve through a film. They go through something. That's a story, right? So your music has to do the same thing. And when he played that, it was the same thing throughout. So it's like your character's evolving, but the music's not. The music's not going along with the journey of the film. So that's what I'm saying. If you listen to Williams or all the greats, that theme that they use, like think of what the hell that the E.T. theme or the famous Star Wars one, the one on Tatooine. Is it the Force theme or whatever?
Yes.
How that evolves, and he repackages it to sound different, but to fit to the emotional context. Listen to Batman Begins. It's the same instruments. It's the same everything. There's a thing for that, and like I said, Hans Zimmer, he appeals to everybody because he writes like from the pop music mentality. 'Cause that's where he's from, rock, like me. So that's why I relate to it so much. Is because if you listen to rock music, it's 3 chords, the same melody throughout the whole thing, and all they're doing is stacking. That's fine. You can do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But to really touch people and to go on an emotional journey, like Pink Floyd, man, that's like the greatest rock band ever because they wrote a song called Echoes. It's 20 minutes long. But when you listen to it, you're with them the whole way. It never gets old for 20 minutes. Dude, if you heard a song today, a band write a song for 20 minutes, you'd be bored by 3.
Yeah.
or you would have a brain aneurysm.
Yes. I'm just being serious. And like people like, will crap on like old music, dude. No, you got to go back and study that stuff. There's a reason we're still listening to it 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years later.
Well, and to be fair to them, I mean, there's the great time filter where there was probably a lot of crap.
There was crap
along with it,
Yeah.
and it's just been,
I know
it's
I'm being
been-
a little more
history
whatever.
has
History
covered
has
it up.
erased the
There's
yeah.
plenty of terrible ragtime.
But it's so, but dude, man, like you go listen to the 60s and 70s and like all the big acts, all the music, dude, even the crap was good. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Right.
there's just that. I mean, there's crap, dude. I get it, but like there's always gonna be crap. But I'm just saying the amount of musicianship that goes into, because back then, dude, it wasn't like you had to be good to be in a, you know what I'm saying? Like it was just a different era, man. Just different.
So just to be a little bit
There he
interesting, I'm
goes.
gonna push back a little bit. Like, do you follow film score analysis on YouTube? The guy who does all
Yes.
of the
I'm just talking about like in general
piano
music.
reductions.
No.
I know. I'm
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
just, this is just my example of something, right? Like you think of like great film, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like always, it's Casablanca. Well, he just recently did 2 cues from Casablanca,
Mhm.
and it's really interesting to look at them because he's actually very dismissive about the music. If you
Hmm.
if you look at his little notes that he's written, and he's not wrong. He talks about he looks at something, where it sort of descends into this, sort of modernist, like atonal, just sludge that is completely boring and just utterly without. It doesn't need to be there. It's just noise behind the scene. And you'll notice him. He makes like, I can't remember what the comment he makes about it, but if you go to film score analysis and look at his Casablanca ones, he's actually not very what's the word I'm searching for? He's not very complimentary about the score. He's actually thinks it's not. I don't think he thinks it's very good. And I actually think he's right for a lot of it. And so I think that's an interesting sort of just like, even in, film scoring in like the 40s was, a lot of it just sort of descended into this meaningless 12-tone just kind of miasma of horror, just like it is very boring to listen to, does not add to the scene. It's just there to kind of fill up space. So I do think that that it's important to remember that stuff existed, right? If we were in the 40s talking about the film scores these days, we'd be saying, why is it all this atonal crap, instead of why is it all this sound design?
Perfect.
So I do think it's important to keep that in context and keep that.
Yeah.
And I think that should be helpful for composers today. I think that should make you optimistic because in the 40s, somebody who was fairly good at orchestration, fairly good at music because you had to be to do any music at all, kind of wrote this kind of like thing for like one of the greatest films of all time, and nobody cared, right? So you can do it too. If he can put this, boring filler stuff in and the greatest movie of all time, you can do it. You can do it too. So or maybe not. You can make crap, but what I'm saying is that like you're not always competing against, Mahler or Mozart or whatever.
Yeah,
So
I mean there's always exceptions to the rule. I'm just saying in general though, I guarantee you every musician, every composer of that era could overwrite anybody. You know what I'm saying? Like their level of skill.
but that's
the
because
things
they
they
had to be, because they didn't
Why
have,
can't
they
we
couldn't
still be
hear
like
their-
that?
Well, we can't. I'm not saying we shouldn't be like
That's
that.
what
I'm
I'm
just
saying.
saying that today it is possible for you to produce
Yes.
something that
You
sounds
push one
very
button
good.
and it plays for you. I get that. I'm just saying we've lost stuff, and it's so easy now. Technology is great. Don't get me wrong. I love it. But you still have to write music. Garbage in,
I'm
garbage out.
100% with you.
You can
on-
tell
on
somebody that
you
knows how to
should
write music.
understand what's happening, and you should understand the mechanics of what you're doing, and not just
Mhm.
let the one button, Evo patch do all the writing for you.
Right.
I agree with that.
But we can't, but we do. And people just, okay,
Sure.
I did that, and then it's in a film score. And now they're a film composer.
Yeah, well, I mean,
But that's
does it work?
I guess. I mean,
Does it work in
I'm
the
just
film?
saying, like,
I mean,
you
if
go
it
take
works
the
in the film.
greatest scores, even the mediocre score from a 90s movie. I still
That's true.
guarantee you will tell you a story outside
It's
of
true.
it.
My wife was watching some terrible 90s comedy, and I was like, man, this is orchestrated really well.
There you go. Even crap music still holds up,
Right.
man. Like, even though you don't like, I'm trying to find out who composed the music for Casablanca. I'm seeing the music crew. So there was a music department. Music director was Leo F.
Max
Forbstein.
Steiner.
Max Steiner. Okay.
Mm.
What was his schedule? I mean, think of here we go. Think of this. Think of oh Jesus, what the hell? They did Rogue One. What's his name? He did Lost.
Giacchino.
Yeah, Giacchino. He had what, 2 weeks to write that?
Something like that.
Yeah. But you got to remember back then, man, there was music houses. People just sat, and that's all they did all day was just write tunes, like just. And I mean, I'm sure there's probably still people that do that today. It's just we just live in a different time, man. Like it's just different, and there's always gonna be crap. There's always gonna be garbage music. That's just how it is. And like you said, throughout time and history, we lose that. People just focus on the stuff that, is great. And well, it's not great, but you know what I mean? It just holds water. And that's why I said it's very rare for a composer to be famous in their day, very rare. All these people that we know, they were broke as a joke, probably working, teaching, like Mozart taught, didn't he? And until until he got, with the King George, right? Or whatever. And he started getting, compositions for that. But he was broke.
Even then, I think he's still hot.
But yeah, I mean, they all teach. And that's one thing I've learned when I did the Composer Talk series. And I still want to keep doing it. It's just had to have time. Like, I would talk to every composer, and they have their hand in 15 other things. Like, I teach, I do this, I do that. And so you're not just solely making money off composing music. It's a great thing just to sit here all day and write music, and here you go, here's another one. Where's my check? But it just doesn't happen that way. And Chris, I think you're finding that out, getting started. Like you said, you're growing, you're teaching, you're giving lessons, and it might not be what you want to do, but there's value in that, though, because you learn more things about you, and you see their mistakes, and you go, well, I do the same thing sometimes, and I'm trying to tell them how to fix it. Now I need to, do that myself. So anyway, we're off like on a whole tangent here. I don't know what the hell we're talking about.
Well, what is a podcast unless it's just
2-3 dudes talking about random stuff?
Right.
But there's value in there, and we like going on these tangents, but I always sound like a Debbie Downer, but it's like, because I realize my weaknesses in music, and I just compare myself to, like, dude, if someone dropped sheet music on my, like, right in my face and said, analyze this, I'm like, I'm done. See ya. Hire somebody else. You know what I'm saying? But, like, it's a real skill. And, yeah, you can write music without learning how to read and all that. I get that. Because there's, Paul McCartney, all these people that don't read music. But that's rock music. But when it comes to orchestra music, and we're evolving somewhere else. That's where film scoring is going to sound design. It's great. And I think a lot of composers that, spent their life, key example, Mike Verda, the dude is just, he's great. He's amazing. I love his stuff. And I've took a lot of his courses, and he's right. It's just like, you don't need it anymore. And like you said, Curtis, it's like, dude, you have sample libraries now. You just press a button, and it's doing it all for you. And I think eventually it's all going to catch up to us, and we're going to lose something. I think we already have. I mean, like I said, the biggest realization for me was when I watched Chinatown, and I was listening to the score, and it was Goldsmith. He had like a tight deadline, and he didn't even have a full orchestra. Like, he just had basic stuff, and you listen to that score, man, and you're just like, wow, amazing. And I went through this period of listening to all these old movies and scores, and I'm just like, wow. And like even storytelling has changed. That formula, the 3-act structure. Now it's like, what, 15 acts in one or something? and I don't know. It's just I think the old man syndrome is starting to fall into me. All cranky.
I think there's a little bit of that. I just I do think people who want to be musicians for a living should be willing to invest in knowing what they're talking about. I think that's a useful line of inquiry.
Basic music theory, just at least
basic
that.
Music, well, and you only really need pretty basic music theory to do
how to construct chords, scales,
something much better than what you hear on the radio. But I guess what I'm trying to remind people of is that this is probably not new. There have been people writing terrible music and making terrible music and being successful and making gazillions of dollars at it for as long as there has been music. How many people are there who are just Mozart imitators for 100 years after he lived, right? I mean, so don't get too down is what all I'm trying to say, is that these people have always existed.
Oh yeah.
Try to aim a little higher. Although, I mean, sometimes it's useful to be that person, to be the, okay, I'm going to copy this exactly and understand how it works, right? And take it apart and understand how it works. And then you move on from it. And I do think that, Todd, there is sort of a in today's culture, a lot of maybe not in today's culture, I guess in the sort of music, the underground, into new music, new cinematic music composer. I buy a lot of sample libraries and post them via control culture, I think, does sometimes not always take that next step of, okay, I understand why Inception works as a score. Now I'm going to try and move on and do something new now that I understand it. I do think that next step isn't always taken, and I myself do not always take it. Sometimes I just write, I write royalty-free music, for God's sake. How much stuff that do I have that's just there to make a buck? So I mean, it's hard. It's a daily struggle. It's a struggle not just for individuals, but for like all of us together as one community, right? But it's possible, and it's. I think I'm always suspicious of, it's worse now than it's ever been. It's probably
No, it's
not.
the best
It's probably
it's ever been.
it's probably better. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing is, it's like once you hit it, you're not stable like it used to be. Like let's take for
Yes.
example, bands. So in the '90s, like I think it was at its peak. All they had to do was throw out an album. They would get royalties from the album if it did really well, successful on the charts, because people still bought CDs and albums and stuff. And then they just had to go on tour for maybe a couple months. They're done. Now it's like, if you've noticed bands, your favorite bands, they're always on tour, always on the road, and nobody buys albums anymore. I still do, because I'm old. And that's another thing we've lost, the album. Like, dude, there was something about sitting down, listening to track 1 to whatever, 10, 12, 14, whatever. And that experience, I'm like that. I've always been like that since I was, like I said, I was born in the wrong era, or I just, whatever. But now you try to listen to a CD or a song or whatever, a whole album, you're just like, you know the filler. The fillers, you can just spot it. You can smell it. Because now it's about the track, the single. And it's always kind of been like that. I mean, if you remember, Curtis, when we grew up, remember they used to have single tapes with a B-side? I mean, they had it back then. There's always been the
God,
single.
Todd, I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Oh,
Jeez.
dude, you remember.
Man, that's insulting.
We're the
No,
same
actually,
age.
I don't. I listen to all my music on CDs.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I still remember cassettes because I remember I had a Walkman cassette player before I had CDs. I didn't get a CD player until I think I was in junior high or high school.
Wow.
Because they were expensive.
They
I
were
remember.
expensive.
They were like $300 for a CD player.
And let me tell you,
yeah.
you would bump them and they'd skip.
Yep.
You
Oh,
would hear the
dude.
music go,
Yeah.
and then they invented skipper
Anti-skip,
CD
10
players.
seconds.
That was so good. But you had to wait the 10 seconds. That's how I feel every time I talk about
well,
this.
the thing is, it's like, but dude, that's the thing. Like,
It's
I
true.
think our generation, or people our age, around 30, 35, 40, around there, we've seen this happen in real time. Like, I remember the old way, and now we're in this new thing, and we've been living through the whole thing. And like, when you think about it, it's like, dude, the internet. There was a time and a place in my life, the internet was a joke. They're like, what's this internet thing? This is going to go away in 2 years. Email? Who's going to send an email? Now I can't get email out of my hair. It's like everywhere. It's like, just email me. Just text me. It's like, dude, you can't get away from it. When, I remember a time in my life, like, technology was just kind of there. Like, I'd be on the computer for 10, 15 minutes. Okay, I'm bored. I'm leaving. Now it's like I can't get away from a computer or my phone, or, you know what I'm saying? So it's like we've seen it play out in real time. And to kind of full circle here, to go back to our initial sample libraries and technology and recording, it's like this is the best time to live and the worst time to live, because we have everything at our disposal, and we like everything now. Like 2 days shipping. Oh my God, I have to wait 2 days for my package to get here. Dude, try waiting a week for your UPS to get here. Remember that, when we used to have to wait a week to get a package?
Yo,
So
we
you
had
just go to the
Canada
store to buy it.
Canada Post
Yeah.
strike. It took our packages like a month.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's like I just think we're just so spoiled, man, and people don't realize like if it could all go away tomorrow. I mean, the internet could just fall apart any day. I mean, really, it could. The funniest thing I ever thought of is from the United States to Europe. There's just a cable that runs under the sea that connects us to internet. Think about that for a while.
There's probably more than one.
Nope,
There is
it's
more than
well,
one.
but they just run under the sea.
Yeah.
Any boat, anybody could just go. We're done.
If you want to learn more about it, there's a wonderful essay. It's extremely long. It's the longest essay Wired's ever published by Neil Stevenson called Mother Earth Motherboard, where he talks about all the undersea cables. It's a really good read, and it's totally on topic for this podcast. So I'm
Cool.
just going to mention it right
This
here.
is more than just a composer podcast. But no,
Right.
I just wanted to mention one thing. Another thing that came out that people were waiting years for was the Cinematic Studio Brass. That came out too. I haven't heard it. I haven't played it. I have the strings and the piano, and I think solo strings. But I love the string library because I think you use them, right, Chris? For that,
Yes.
that lush, man. They just have that really
Yes.
nice. Yeah. So I'm curious to see how the brass works in there. I don't know. I didn't see too much. I think people were outraged as well.
Of course.
Yeah. So
Of
I just,
course.
I think we live in outrage culture. Everybody's just mad at everything, and it's just a sign of the times where we're living. But just remember, the libraries you have right now is probably the best they've ever been. Even the crap. So it kind of relates to music. You know, not every library is going to be, the best library out there. Some are just going to
Yeah.
fall by the wayside. Because I mean, if you look at the staples of libraries, we have for brass is usually samples.
Mhm.
Is really a go-to. A lot of professional composers that I know use
Same.
them. Hollywood brass still gets used a lot. I mean, what's the third one would you guys put in there? I mean, those are the two that come to my mind.
I would say like for softer brass, Berlin brass is kind of popular, although it's
Berlin?
kind of out of the price
Expensive.
range for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the barrier entry I think for orchestra tools. They're just so expensive, and a lot of
It
people
is.
want them.
Yeah.
But
Also, they don't do like bundles enough. I
Yeah.
feel like I would
Yeah.
love to have the option to, at a steep discount, spend $2,000 on every orchestral library they make.
yeah,
Like
Hmm.
that's all I want from them, or whatever it needs to cost. And I feel like it's not possible. And that's my one thing about This is why I think I have still East West primarily as my thing, is that you can go to East West and buy the orchestra,
mhm,
as
Right.
one
right.
thing.
And it's
And
cheap
you go to
now.
other places, you go to Spitfire, you go to Orchestral Tools, you go to even Cine whatevers, and it's like there are 14 brass libraries. ATO does this too, and I'm like, no, I just want an orchestra. Just sell me the full
Cinesamples
orchestra.
does, I think, don't they?
do
Well, they
Cine samples. It's been a while since I've looked at their
Let me
stuff. I
see.
just
Yeah, they have like
At
3
one
brass
point-
libraries now or 4.
at one point I went there and I was just trying to figure out what does it cost me.
Cinesymphony complete
the
bundle.
orchestra.
Yeah,
There
they
you go.
have, there it is. The
So-
Essentials of
yeah,
Cinesymphony. Yeah, so they have that.
And how much is it?
Right now it's 2,300. But
That's
normally it's about
that's-
3,000 because it's on sale.
Yeah,
They're
three is
actually
little
running a really
much.
good sale right
20
now.
two something I think would be fine. But anyway, the point being, that's what I want out of them. So I'll have to go look at those again because that's all I want from you. I don't want,
It's 9
know-
libraries that you get.
I don't want, buy our full strings library, buy our Divisi library, buy our first chairs, buy
Mhm.
our,
Well, they
and
just-
I'm like, what is the I just
Didn't Cinesample?
Drives-
They just released the choir library, the Voices of War. Didn't they just release
Yeah.
that? Yeah. I haven't heard
Looks
it yet.
interesting, but not really.
I'll tell you what, there is a place where I think we need a lot of work. There is a place where
Yeah,
I was talking
choir.
about this on VI. I put a post on this on VI Control in the Eric Whitaker Choirs thread that there is no real good meat and potatoes choir library that just works reasonably well in all contexts.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a
Right.
place where sampling has not gotten there. Like
Do we
every
need more choir? Come
choir,
on, man.
every choir library that exists works really well in one setting.
I-
You know,
Mm.
for
Oh.
East West,
Dun, 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 dun,
either
dun.
it's the
That's all it
giant
is. dude.
choir, well, or like Eric Whitaker choirs is the quiet
I know.
chamber choir, or whatever. Like people say, oh, who's the one? There's the one. Who's the people that have the Magnum Mysterium demo? I can't remember who they are.
Is that a
I kept seeing people saying this is so much better than East West. This is so much better than EW Choirs. Like, I don't know why you're all stupid if you don't buy this. So I go and I listen to that. That demo is horrendous. I would be embarrassed to have that as my demo.
Nice.
Those words, if you listen to it, they go like, oh, wow.
But dude,
No,
like to your point, but like
I'm
that's everybody.
Have you ever heard a choir? Are you an alien that
But
has
that's
only
all
had a
everybody
choir
uses a choir for
pipes
anyway,
to?
dude. Like think about it. Epic music is just she's dropped all day. Da, 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 da. That's it. That's it. That's it. So you're limited, and that's why that it goes back to the rant we just had with the epic music and music. It's like it's all it is, dude. It's just loud ass drums, strings that are way too loud, brass that's like very unrealistic, and people. It's just like it's become a parody of itself. That's why I said I thought epic music was done and over. We've moved on enough, and it is. It's going to more ambient, soundscapey kind of. You know what I mean? Like that stuff.
Yeah, I've heard those before.
That's where it's going, and which might be good for me since I like ambient music. But anyway, Cine Samples, Curtis, I'm just looking at their website. They offer bundles, dude. They have the Cinebrass bundles.
All right. I believe you. I take this criticism away from Cine Samples.
No, they're actually one of the out of all sample library companies, and I'm not being paid, or I just like Michael Patty. I think he's a great stand-up dude. And I like the company because they're very forthwith with what they do. Like, this is what you get. This is it. And he does the walkthrough videos. And they always run deals, man. They always are running deals.
Yeah.
And, yeah, their libraries might be a little dated, but they always update them for free. And they could charge us $50. I mean, I think they charged one time when they had to update a library to Contact. So they charged for it. But they roll out updates and, you know.
Okay. So I'm looking at the Cine Samples website. You're right. They offer a bundle. Good for them. I'm excited. It drives me insane that there is a CineWinds core product and a CineWinds
because they offer different instruments. Yeah.
No, just wins. Just put them in one product.
Well, they're different thing because core is the core. I know.
I know
you don't want them
thing, but it drives me nuts. Because like an orchestra is an orchestra is an orchestra is an orchestra is an orchestra. Like we like this has been decided. We know what an orchestra is.
Yeah.
Like Vienna is the worst about this, by the way. Go to Vienna's website. See how many Winds products you can find.
Well, they have.
There's probably 100 Winds products.
Man, like at least 15.
Yeah, it's insane. I just want a Winds section with everything that comes with the Winds section.
Yeah.
All I want.
CineWinds Pro comes with like ethnic instruments too, so like it's a little bit different, and it has
even then I think the East-West approach of putting ethnic instruments together as like an ethnic instruments package is still better than that, but whatever.
It's the winds that like E flat clarinet, like the ones that aren't used a lot.
Right. E flat clarinet.
Bass clarinet, contra. So that's
Oboe d'amore. Yeah.
Well, OT hasn't done a full choir library yet, so that's probably what they're working on next year. So we'll see.
I'm just over the sample library. Like, as you guys can tell, every episode I get on here, I'm just like, I haven't listened to that. I really don't care. Because I use what I have, and they work just well. It's all production, dude. You can make the worst library. If you get it in the hands of someone that knows what the hell they're doing, it could probably blow away any new library. I mean, we're at like...
I'm seriously thinking of doing an entire library with Note Performer. Like almost like maybe like a...
There you go. There's your challenge.
I just want to do like a whole library just like that, because it's just... A, they're easier to use, and B, they kind of have that. They're a little bit cheesy sounding. I feel like you could do that like '90s Japanese video game soundtrack kind of sound. I'm thinking about doing it. I've been thinking about it. Just to
one song, just do one track.
And when I'm done, and you know what the beautiful thing will be at the end, I'll have all the sheet music for my album done. So if we ever want to make like the live version, it'll just be there.
True.
One thing I've noticed too, I know we got to wrap, but since I got this Kemper amp, and like I've been playing guitar for over 20 years, I know what real amps sound like. Like I don't have to think about it. I just know, and that's the only thing I've never really got into like the digital stuff. You know, I have Guitar Rig because it came with native instruments, and like every time I play it, I'm just like, yeah, it's okay, but I can just hear it. You know, just like I guess an orchestra, a conductor, or somebody that's like heard the orchestra every day of their life, and then they hear it's missing something. I will say this, the Kemper, I can still hear that missing thing, but to my ears, it's the closest we've gotten, and it's damn good. But obviously I've had it for a day and a half. So I haven't really
Yeah.
messed with it, and you can
Yeah.
tweak it and stuff like that. But I'm just saying, right out of the box, it's damn close, and I've heard examples too. So, I don't know where the hell I was going with that, but anyway, yeah. So I mean, I think we're just like, oh, it's going back to what you were talking about, Curtis. It's like I think we're there. Like, how much better are these libraries going to get besides the scripting and effects? You know what I'm saying? Just the meat
Well,
and
yeah,
potatoes.
I think that
yeah.
where we can go
Yeah.
from here. Like the future of the industry is
AI.
I have a violin 1 sample. It's not a violin 1 spiccato sample. It's not a violin 1 legato sample. It's a violin 1 sample.
Mhm.
And I play the track in as I'd like it to, and it switches to the correct articulations when it needs to. You know, I just put on the thing, you know, I want it to be spiccato here versus staccatissimo here. You know, maybe I put that in the MIDI controller, maybe I write it on the score, whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, going to that where you no longer have to have a template with literally thousands of tracks, I think is where we can you know, focusing on playability and to you know, and here's you know, I hear that Spitfire library, the violin one, is like that, where you just kind of play it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of does it all for you in the background. That's where we need to go, I think. That's my opinion.
Right.
I don't think we need, you know, another giant brass epic library, but I would rather have a single solo horn library where I never touch a MIDI controller. where I never write in an expression line. Like,
yeah, it's called pen and paper.
That's where we should go. That's my hope for the future. My hope for the future.
Yeah, Curtis, it's called grab a pencil and a sheet of paper. There you go.
Yeah, I know. I have. This is the rant I always do every week, right? Is the we have a notation for this.
Yeah.
We have a way of doing this already.
So I just went to Spitfire's site, which I haven't been in a long time. Now they have Spitfire Studio Strings Professional. What?
Do they already? Oh,
well,
man.
they have Studio Brass Professional. I thought all their libraries were already professional. What's
the professional
difference?
ones they came out with like
I see.
like
More
afterwards.
mics.
Yeah.
Guys, they have more mics.
Yeah, that's it. Again.
Whatever. Hey, more power to Spitfire. They're doing it.
Yeah.
People are buying it. Good for them. It works. Like I said, I own Spitfire. I like their products for the most part.
I will say that I think that I only own 2, but I do feel that Spitfire is one of those companies I feel like cares about details, which is something that matters to me. You know, they care about the little things for the most part.
Yeah.
You know, their stuff is very pleasant to use. It sounds very, very nice. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to have to fight you to the nth detail. So the more details you can take care of before you hand me your product, the better. And they generally, the 2 experiences that I've had with them have been very positive on that front.
Oh, yeah. I agree. No, I'm like I said, I always will say this. They are the Apple of the sample library world. They're just it might not do everything
I
you
use
want.
Apple products too. It's the same thing. It's just
The
details are
details.
taken care of. Someone has thought about something, you know.
Their interfaces are usually really clean, easy to
They
use.
go away.
Yeah.
They're not trying to constantly advertise, hey, look at this cool new feature we have, you know, blah blah blah. It's just like
It's not like
disappears into the background.
an interface with like every button that you need.
Mhm.
You know, like that's the difference between a PC and a Mac is that Windows has everything right there, all your options, and a Mac's like, nope, these are the only options we're giving you. Which for us that's why I think a lot of people gravitate towards that are creative, a Mac, because they don't want to think about it. I just want it to work. And you can tell somebody that uses I'm not trying to get into Windows versus Mac, but it's just like a thing I've picked up on since I've been a Mac user for over 10 years. It's like when people ask me, why do you use a Mac? It's like, and then you could just tell from when talking to them, like, well, I like having all that stuff. I'm like, dude, I don't want that. I just want to get it. I want my computer to work. And I don't want to think about it. I just want to work, do my work, you know, my music or, you know, actual work.
Sure.
And I don't have to think about a computer. And I think Spitfire does that a lot with their libraries. Like, you just use it and it just kind of works for the most part. And there's things you have to tweak. But yeah, I totally agree with that. Because I know I've used some libraries. You're just like, oh, I have to go under the hood to do all this to make it work. What? I know.
Here's my weekly plug for Dorico on that front. By the way, I feel like Dorico is that way too. It's just there's a million options, but they're not all presented to you. You just do what you do, and it takes care of all the crap
Yeah.
for you. You don't
Mm.
you don't deal with like it is insane to me that an engraving program would ever make me move an object so it is not colliding with another object. No,
Uh-oh.
no. I hold on, my phone is ringing. Sorry.
It's important. Well, I was just gonna say, Mike Worth, I had him on Composer Talk. He's a tweaker like that. He'll go into Contact and re-script everything for himself. I was like, dude, that's great that he does all that, and he makes it work. He makes it work for him. And I was like, dude, that's awesome. But yeah, I don't have the patience for that.
Yeah, I only know the front end of Contact. Like,
me too.
You just use your library and you get in, get out. That's it.
Oh yeah, there's no chance in hell I'm ever going underneath there. There's just no, not doing it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think we've ranted enough. But this was
So I think our show notes for this are going to be a long, discursive, endless discussion without structure, and that's fine. I think that's fine.
Oh, it was the end of the year episode, kind of like our get it all out there. We're gonna prep for the new year. Like I said, we have a lot of. We're gonna talk. And
yeah, I think we have enough material for another show already, just in the notes. So we'll just
Yeah, we have stuff planned, and like I said, we've already kind of started talking about a few ideas that we've had, like Patreon and having other, like maybe that's where the mini episodes would go. You know, if you pledged, you get mini episodes, and of course they'd come to the podcast, but you get them firsthand, and maybe we'll do video tutorials specifically for the Patreon. And like I said, I want to add more composers giving content. We want to do more interviews on specific topics. Hopefully we can start reaching out to companies, sample libraries, the ones that we bash and the ones that we love. And I'm just kidding, and interview them and talk about them, and maybe we can make a difference.
I so look forward to the day where we finish complaining about Spitfire. Eric Whitaker Choirs Pro. Today we're sponsored by Eric Whitaker Choirs Pro around here.
Well, they need to understand, like, I keep it real, man, and like, and we need that in the world. We need truth and stuff, and we're talking because we are those people. We buy their products, and it's just a little infuriating. Like, they've gotten better, but I remember a point in time, I think when we first started the podcast, like I would get an email from Spitfire, like, swear to God, 10 times a week, and I just like after a while I'm just like, I ignored them. It's like, dude, how many libraries do you need? And I get it, they're a business, they're a company, but I don't know. But they've gotten better, and it's just like we got to keep them honest, because if they don't, they're going to take advantage of us. And the problem I see with Spitfire and with people, especially on VI Control, which I don't go there anymore, is like the first instance of a release, people are just like, it's the best thing ever. It's like, okay, really? You know what I mean? Like, let's be objective here. But you know what I mean? Like, anything they could put out. Like, I think there's a joke. Isn't there a joke on VI Control? They could put out a fart library and people would buy it.
Yep.
Or whatever it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you guys, like, if you stop throwing your money at everything and be more selective and work on your. I look at, like I said, I think I've said this many times. Like, I look at it as like guitar pedals. I don't need every damn pedal. I just need what's going to work for what I need to do. And if you start looking at them as tools. What's your vision? And like Chris, I think you're like one of the best at doing this because like you have a very specific thing that you do that you love. You love. I mean, I know you love more than just Mario and video games, but like that's what got you into this.
Yes.
So you need those libraries that can do that sound, and that's why you use Berlin. And that's why you use those specific libraries because that captures the essence of what you're trying to go for. So
yes. Yeah.
And I'm sure Curtis does, like, he uses East West, the libraries that have been around for what now, 10 years or more or less? I don't know.
A while.
Yeah. But, like, you still use them because they
do what we need to do.
Yeah, they do it. Yeah. And you know how to work them. You've used them so much.
True.
Like, you know how to get what you need out of them or what they can't do. And then you go to your other tools that, but you need a bread and butter. You need your meat and potatoes. And I just see it all the time, man, in our Discord. And when I used to go to VI Control, just like people getting carried away, man. It's like, dude, stop the noise, pick out a theory book, or go listen to some music, and go transcribe some songs. I guarantee you that will put you far more than buying the next sample library. You know what I'm saying? Like, learn something, and then use that in your next piece. And I'm starting to do that myself. I mean, I don't transcribe as much as I should, but I do occasionally. I'll hear something, and I'm just like, I got to figure that out, man. I remember I was listening to, if you have kids, you'll understand. the Disney, what is it, the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, the theme song, and I figured out the little bell part. Dun, 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 dun. So I'll play that for my kids, and they love it. But I was like, dude, I gotta know what that is. Even stupid stuff like that, because it teaches you melody. It teaches you how to write catchy melodies.
It does. Yeah. And there's a lot of, by the way, don't sleep on kids' music.
Yeah.
My Little Pony has absolutely excellent score. I'm just saying.
There's some good ones, man. My kid, like, once you have children, like, this stuff starts becoming apparent. Like, you're like, damn, that's so catchy. I need to learn how to do that so I can put that in my music. And
I think kids' music is really interesting because it's either utter just
garbage,
like dog feces, or it's like really good. It's really weird. Like, there's very little, like, just kind of mediocre. It's either just terrible or it's really shockingly good, and you're just like, who is this person? Why have I never heard of this before?
I think that's where, like, the stuff being pushed forward as far as, like, film scoring, if you want to say, is in kids, like those
absolutely
animations and stuff, dude. Like How to Train Your Dragon. Like,
How to Train Your Dragon is literally 10 scores of like 10 awesome scores in one. It's just it's insanely good.
Yeah. There's like ethnic music. I mean, it's insane, dude. Action music. Yeah. It's just really good. If you haven't listened to it, go check it out. I'm sure most of us have. But yeah, definitely don't shy away from animations, man. There's some really good music in there. And don't be shamed if you get approached to do one. I think that's where they're really doing some good stuff, if that's what you want to do. But anyway, I think that's good.
I would love to do a kids movie if anyone's doing kids movies who listens to us. Just, I'd love it more than anything in the universe.
I need a challenge. I need to see someone drop a project in that I don't know how to do and go do it. It's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to go do it. But anyway, I think that's good.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate you sticking with us, and hopefully you've learned something along with us, and we can't wait to see you in the new year.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Feel free to please leave us a review if you're on iTunes below. That helps us with our ratings. Also, if you want to know more about us, head over to composingmadesimple.com, and you can find all the information where you can find me, Chris, and Curtis online. Again, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your support and look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care.